Steve Stine from GuitarZoom here. I want to thank you for all the comments that you've been giving from the last video where we started talking about some basic fundamental chordal theory. It's really important that we start learning how to do those things to make our lives easier when it comes to learning songs. Songs, you know, other than from a technical standpoint possibly, songs shouldn't be a chore. They should be fun for you to play. So if you've got a really complicating song over there that you're working on, then you need to find a couple of easier songs over here. So you're developing different things. Every song shouldn't be about your technique. Sometimes you need to have songs that are more about your ability of being able to create on a musical level, not just on a technical level. So it's very important. So in the first video, what we did was we talked about trying to put together a 1 and a 4 and a 5 chord progression, and started understanding that it's really important that we learn that there really isn't a difference for us as guitar players between the key of G and the key of A and the key of D. We want to learn how to hear the sounds of a 1 and a 4 and a 5 and various other chords as well. So as we're listening to a song, we can already start figuring out how the song goes before we ever even touch the guitar. It's really important to be able to do that. Again, for me, I've been teaching for over 25 years now. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a long time, though. And this is one of those things that a lot of people, they tend to pull back when you start talking about ear training and how to develop your ability to hear sounds and hear pitches and hear how they relate to other pitches. To develop that ear training ability. And I can't stress enough how important it is to do that, because it saves me so much time. When I'm going to learn how to teach a song, you know, I might be doing a 30-minute lesson and somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to learn how to play whatever. You got to be able to figure that song out in no time flat, or you go out to a club and there's people out there that say, hey, we want you to get up and play with us. You know, we know these songs and you don't know any of those songs. And so you go, well, what key is this in and what chords does it use and whatever. And then you start kind of formulating in your head what you're going to do. So when they call you up, you're already ready to go. Or it might be a performance situation where you're going to be jamming with some people, or you're going to try out for a band or something like that. You know, the quicker you're able to sort of assess the situation with the song that you're going to play or the songs you're going to play and be able to come up with the correct answer, the more people tend to want to play with you. And so I really want you to think about that. So one of the concepts that I'm going to teach you how to do in Ear Training Made Easy is to start learning how to think about pitches by using your 6th string to figure out how the song goes. Now let's say, for instance, I'm going to have my wonderful videographer, what he's going to do is he's going to blank this out. I'm going to play a chord progression, but the screen is going to be black so you can't see it, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to listen to the chords that I'm playing. Are you ready? All right, so the screen goes black and I'm going to play. And now the screen comes back on, and you don't know what I did, but you were able to hear the sounds of chords. So what you would need to learn how to do for effective ear training is to be able to analyze in your head, how many different chords did you just hear? Not how many different changes, but how many different colors, how many different chords did you hear? The second question is, what direction did those colors move? Did they move down? Did they move up? When did they move down? When did they move up? And you start learning how to train your mind and train your ear to hear those sounds. Okay? Now, we're going to black out the screen again, and I'm going to play the same thing again, and I want you to be listening for this. Are you ready? So here we go. Screen is black. You cannot see me. Ha-ha. Here we go. And the screen comes back on, and now you have to ask yourself again, how many different chordal sounds did you hear? Right? And what direction did they move? This is where the 6th string becomes absolutely imperative, because you have the 6th string, I should say. I'm not sure if that's what I said, but you have 6 strings. You have all these frets, but the truth is, it's the same pitches over and over and over again. So what I train people how to do is to use that 6th string to figure out how their chord progression is going to go. Let's bypass major sounds and minor sounds for right now. Let's not worry about sevenths and ninths and everything like that. Let's just focus on what chords were actually being played when I played that chord progression, okay? So, for instance, again, I'm going to black out the screen for a second, and I'm going to play a chord, and then we're going to come back, just one chord. So here we go, black out the screen. Now bring the screen back on. Now that sound has got to be one of those 12 notes. Between 0 and 12, no matter what chord is ever played in the history of music, it has to be one of those 12 notes as a root. Okay? So again, the chord could be major or minor, whatever. We'll get there. That's another step. But the first step is we need to figure out what was that chord. So again, black out the screen, please. Here we go. And come back on. So now what you do is you'd go to your 6th string. And you'd figure out that sound. Now, the way I used to do this when I was younger, I had records. Some of you might know what a record is. I would take that needle and I would listen to not the entire song, but I would listen to just the very beginning of it. And I would get a riff, not 5 riffs, because that's too many. My brain couldn't absorb that idea. I would take 1 or 2 or maybe 3 different chord progressions, chord changes, right? And I would listen to it. And if it got to be more than that, then I would stop and I'd put the needle back. And I'd listen to it again. And then I'd listen to it again. And I'd get the sound in my head. And then I'd go to my guitar and I'd figure out what I just heard. You see? So ear training isn't just about knowing how to play your chords and things like that, although you need to know that. It's about being able to identify. Sometimes it's theory. Sometimes it's a 1 and a 5 and whatever, like we talked about in the last video. In this video, what we're doing is we're talking about absolute sound, not a 1 and a 5 and a 4 and a 6 and all those kind of things from theory, but from ear training, from just core ear training. So again, let me black the screen one more time. Here we go. Black it out. Okay. Now, you know that your first chord is this, because you figured out from that note. Now again, it takes time to develop that, and we're going to talk about that in this course, okay? So I developed that. Now I have to decide, did the sound go up or down from there? So your answer would have been, how many different chords are there? There are 3. There are multiple changes, but there are only 3 chords. This one, and this one, and this one. So then the second thing is once you've, or the third thing, the first thing is figuring out the root. The second thing is figuring out the direction that it's moving. And then the third thing is figuring out the pattern. It's moving down, and then it's moving back up. Down, down, up, up. So you see, you start learning directional things as well, okay? So regardless of what anybody says, people will say, hey, you don't need music theory to learn how to play guitar. Yeah, you don't. You don't need a pick. You don't need all your fingers. You don't need all your strings. There's a million things you don't need, right? What I'm telling you is music theory, fundamental basic music theory and ear training can make your life significantly easier when you're trying to learn how to play songs. Okay? In the first video, we learned that basic theory can help us in our ear training, so when we hear songs that we don't know how to play, we can identify the chord changes. Now what we're doing is we're learning what I call street theory, which is being able to hear the movements by our ear training. Not by theory, but by our ear training, by visualization, right? We find the note that matches the root that we're hearing by proper listening, and we're going to talk about that. We apply that, and then we keep learning how direction works, directional movement. Does it go down? Does it go up? How does it move? Okay? What distance does it sound like it moves? And we practice things like that. So that's the next step that I want you to start working on a little bit is as you're listening to songs, maybe go to a punk song, right? I used to love using songs like, if you like punk music, you can use blues music, basic blues music, don't get crazy. Find songs that don't move very fast, kind of medium tempo. Find songs that use minimal amounts of chord changes. So if you go to a Ramones song, for the most part, it's not going to have a lot of changes. You're going to go to a B.B. King song or something like that. It's not going to have a lot of changes. If you go to an old, early Beatles song or an early Rolling Stones song or something like that, again, not a lot of chord changes. Their goal wasn't to, make 500 chord changes. It was to play music. So you can use those as a great example for trying to figure out how to develop the basic foundation of ear training. And again, that's why we're here. I'm going to ask you, go ahead and make a comment. Let's talk about these things. You can go to the Facebook community page. We can discuss these ear training elements. And next video, we're going to get a little bit further into this ear training. We're going to dive in a little bit further, and I'm going to give you some more tools to try and use. So take care and practice hard.